Yeah, this trip was a little more than I originally had in mind. How's it going, guys? Welcome back to Fibs Reacts, and in today's video, I'm just going to be talking a little bit about my recent trip to Arizona. So this was my very first time going to Arizona. This is actually the furthest out west that I've ever been. And as far as what made me want to go to Arizona specifically, I mean, number one, I just found a pretty affordable trip. And number two, I've always wanted to see the desert. I know it sounds kind of silly, but like I grew up watching like old westerns and things like that, and I've always kind of been fascinated by, the West, the Wild West. And I just think, desert landscape and wildlife is just really fascinating to me. But yeah, this trip got got a little crazy. So let's get into the story. So I was only going to be there for a couple days, and I actually had connecting flights to get there and back. So starting off, I woke up really early, and I had a friend of mine drive me to the airport, and everything was fine there. Got through TSA okay, made it to my flight with plenty of time to spare. And the first location I would be going to for my connecting flight was Detroit.
Take him to Detroit. No! No, not Detroit! No!
Now, this was also somewhere else that I had never been to before. I'd never been to Michigan. And the flight over there was fine, not too terribly long. And once I got there, I had, plenty of time before my next flight, which would be the flight to Phoenix. However, the flight from Detroit to Phoenix was like 4 hours. So that was such a long flight. Thankfully, however, I was fortunate enough to get an aisle seat. So that was kind of nice to have, a little bit of extra room. So after that flight, you could imagine I was so ready to get off the airplane. But one thing I will say, and I just want to make a little PSA announcement, okay? When we are getting off the airplane, please do not be that person who will jump into the aisle, start opening up the storage compartments, grabbing their bags, and all they do is just stand there in the aisle. Or they'll try to rush to the front of the plane so they could, get off early. Now listen, I understand you want to get off the plane. We all want to get off the plane. Or maybe, you have a connecting flight. But I feel like it does more harm than good, because all that ends up happening are just people's butts in my face. Not having any sense of personal space, just completely disregarding the fact that you're sitting there. And I just feel like things would be so much easier if, when the plane lands and the seatbelt light goes off, everyone just stay in your seat, just calm your shit, and then we can just go row by row instead of, people climbing all over each other to try to be the first ones off the plane. So anyway, sorry for the rant, but that's just a little pet peeve of mine when it comes to flying. So anyway, after I get off the plane in Phoenix, I then called my Uber. I was gonna get a rental car, but again, I was only gonna be there for a couple days, so it just didn't really feel worth it to me. So the Uber pulls up, I get in the car, and we start to drive to my hotel. And dude, this guy was flying down the highway. I mean, I thought it was over. And what was so funny to me was he had like Christian radio like playing in the car. And I was like, yeah, that's probably pretty appropriate, because I feel like I'm about to meet God here in a few minutes. But anyway, we finally show up to the hotel. And now listen, this was one of those things where, when I booked this trip, I booked the flight and the hotel in one package just because you get a better deal. And I didn't necessarily go, balls to the wall with this hotel, because again, I was only going to be there for a couple days. So bear in mind, this was not, the 5-star Plaza Hotel, okay? But we pull up to this place, and it's kind of in a sketchy part of town, and I see, a lot of like homeless people kind of lingering around. But anyway, I walk into the lobby of the hotel, and it's one of those places where the doors are on the outside. It's like one of those hotels, which I didn't even realize when I first booked it. But anyway, there were a couple people in line waiting to check in. And I'm kind of looking around the lobby, and it doesn't look very clean. Like some of the paint's like chipping off the wall. And like not even within 5 minutes of me standing in line waiting to check in, I had a guy come up to me like, "Hey man, you got change for a 20?" And like as I'm, standing in the lobby, I mean, it sounds silly, but I get bit by like 2 bugs. I don't even know what they were, but when I saw the bites, I mean, they were, huge, and they itched like crazy. And I was like, man, if this is what the lobby's like, if these are the kind of bugs flying around the furniture in here, then what the hell is the bed in my room gonna be like? So anyway, it's finally my turn to check in. And he asked for my ID and all that kind of stuff. And then finally it comes time to put down the deposit for the room. Right as I'm about to give my card to the hotel clerk, a cop walks in. And I see him kind of, he walks in, he like goes into the hotel office. He's kind of talking to some of the employees. And then I see him like, he's basically like taking a report on something. And he's like putting gloves on. I see him like using a flashlight to look at something. I'm like, okay, what the hell is going on? And again, this is right as I'm about to put down the deposit for my room. And so as I'm about to do so, I kind of pause, and the hotel clerk's like, yeah, you can go ahead. And I was like, sorry, just wait 1 second. And I kind of walk over there to the police officer. I'm like, hey, like, can I talk to you outside for a second? And he's like, yeah, sure. And so we step outside, and I just kind of explained my situation to him. I was like, hey man, I'm here from out of town. I'm just about to check into this hotel. Seeing you walk in isn't exactly a good sign to me. And I was just like, do you get a lot of calls here? Like, is this a bad place? And he's like, yeah, I mean, I'll get calls here like every now and then, just, maybe some public disturbances, maybe some fist fights and whatnot. And then he's like, yeah, I mean, except for this time, I mean, the reason I'm here today is we confiscated a gun on the premises. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? A gun? And so I was at that point like, oh my gosh, like I need to get the hell out of here. And the guy was super cool. He was, kind enough to kind of give me some recommendations. He told me some places that I should stay away from, and he recommended a few other places. Really cool guy. Shout out to that police officer. So after that, I'm kind of pacing around outside, just kind of contemplating what I should do. I was like, man, like, should I just suck it up and just stay here? And because again, it's only for a few days. And that's pretty much what I decided to do. So I went back inside, and I go to the hotel clerk, and I'm like, yeah, like I'll go ahead and, finish checking in. And again, same thing. I'm like just about to put down the deposit for the room. And then this lady who was staying at the hotel, she walks in, and at the same time, the cleaning lady is on this side of me. She's kind of going into like a supply closet or something. And the lady over here is like, hey, so-and-so, like, I don't have any towels in my bathroom. I was supposed to have towels. Where are the towels at? And then she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I got behind on cleaning the towel. Like, we don't have any towels right now. And then she's like, well, I've been waiting on housekeeping for days now. Like, what's going on? And again, it's that same thing. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, what is this place? And so at that point, I ask the hotel clerk, I'm just like, can I just see the room? Like, will you let me just go look at the room before I decide to commit to this? And so he did. He gives me the key, and I wander around this hotel complex trying to find my room because all the numbers and letters are like so damn confusing. I can't find my freaking room. Well, finally I do find it, and I walk in, and it looked fine, but at the same time, just looking at the area I was in, seeing, some of the people walking around, obviously hearing what the police officer had to say, hearing how housekeeping was doing with the place, I was like, man, I gotta go somewhere else. So at that point, I look up other hotels in the area just to see if there were any rooms available that I could possibly go to. Well, fortunately, I found one, and I just went ahead and reserved the room online. And I walk back in, I go up to the hotel clerk, and I'm like, hey, do you have like a cancellation fee or anything like that? And he's like, no, because, you haven't put down a deposit, you haven't paid anything through us, you paid it through your booking agent. So you would have to contact them about canceling and refunds and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, okay, called an Uber and left. So then I got to the other hotel, and it was just, I could just tell it was just so much nicer. It was, an actual like hotel, like the rooms were on the inside of the building. There were elevators. It just looked a lot more clean. It was in a better area. Again, not like some super luxurious hotel, but definitely a hell of a lot better than the other place was. So anyway, I get checked into this new hotel. I go up to my room and I was relieved, but at the same time, I'm not out of the woods yet, because I knew, I was like, man, I gotta get this hotel canceled before they decide to charge me something for it. So like the hotel clerk said, I called my booking agent, and I kid you not, I was on hold for like 30 minutes before somebody finally picked up the phone. So anyway, I talked to the first lady, and hear me out. I am not trying to be an asshole, but I could not understand what she was saying. I mean, yes, like she spoke English, but it was like very, 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 very broken English. So pretty much after anything she said, there would be like a 5-second delay of me just trying to like process and like interpret what she was trying to say before I could finally give an answer back. And sometimes I just had to be like, I'm sorry, I couldn't understand you, or you cut out or something like that. Could you repeat what you said? And then they would tend to say it a bit more slowly so I could understand what they were saying. And it sucked because every time I did that, I could tell like she was getting kind of irritated. Now I'm like, damn lady, like I can't understand what you're saying. Well, anyway, it was one of those things where, she was like, unfortunately, I can't help you with that specific thing. So let me transfer you to so-and-so who can. I'm like, oh my gosh. So she transfers me over. And again, it's the same thing. I can barely understand what this lady is trying to say to me. But anyway, after having a conversation with her, we kind of came to an odd conclusion. So you know how the hotel guy was like, hey, if you want to cancel, if you want a refund, whatever, you got to call your booking agent. Well, the booking agent was like, well, we got to check with the hotel and see if they can basically waive the cancellation fee. And I wasn't about to get into an argument with her, but I was thinking in my head, I was like, they told me to call you about this. So anyway, basically she sent them an email basically asking if they could waive the cancellation fee, because I decided not to go with that hotel. And she's like, yeah, you'll probably hear back in 24 hours. So I basically got my hotel situation taken care of by that point. Now keep in mind, at this point I had, flown for 7 hours. I was jet lagged. Pretty much all I had at that point was like a protein bar. I mean, hungry as shit, starting to get a headache. I mean, it was just like one of those things, I needed a shower, man. Like I was a mess. So after getting the hotel situation kind of worked out, I was able to kind of, relax a little bit, ordered a pizza, took a shower, just, laid on the bed and watched TV. And I was just, oh my gosh, so nice. So anyway, the next day was basically where I was gonna go exploring. So I decided to go to the Sonoran Desert, this wonderful preserve that they have out there. And I got out there, kind of mid-morning, I would say. And I ended up leaving kind of late in the afternoon. And when I first got there, it was kind of cloudy and overcast. I was like, man, because I knew I, wanted to take pictures. But then as the day kind of went on, the clouds kind of started to clear and then the sun came out. But it was just amazing. I mean, like everything I wanted to see. I actually saw a Roadrunner in real life, which was pretty cool. And yeah, overall, I mean, just a really, really cool experience. But the craziness doesn't end here. So I got back to my hotel and I realized that I had not yet checked in for my flight for the next day. So as I went to do that, I also realized I hadn't bought a carry-on item for that flight. So I go online and I'm trying to, add a carry-on bag to my flight order. And in doing so, of course, I get an error that's like, your card has been declined, da 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 da. And I'm just like, you have got to be kidding me. And it didn't have to deal with like, the balance in my account or anything like that. It didn't have to deal with J-HUD.
Insufficient funds.
I mean, I had enough money in my account, but for whatever reason, the online payment just wasn't going through. So off we go back to the land of customer service. So I call the airline, I explain everything that's going on, and the guy's like, well, you can either do two things. One, you can try to use a different card, or you can contact your bank and, kind of talk to them as to why the payment's not going through. Well, unfortunately, I left my spare Amex at home, so I didn't exactly have another card on me I could use. So I ended up having to call my bank. So I was on the phone with him for a few minutes, and basically, long story short, everything was fine. Like, there was nothing wrong. I mean, he was like, yeah, I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with your account. Like, I don't know why it's not working. And so I'm like, great. Like, I have no idea what to do. Like, there's nothing wrong with the bank. I don't have another card I can use. So like, what the hell am I supposed to do? And so originally what I thought I was going to have to do was, basically while I'm like in person at the airport, talking to one of the clerks at that airline and being like, hey, can I add a carry-on, and paying for it there. But if I'm not mistaken, I think when you do it in person, they can tend to charge you more. So it's kind of better to do it online. And so because I thought I was just going to do it all in person, I was like, well, let me just go ahead and check in for my flight. Well, of course, as I go to check in, it's like, you cannot check in for this flight because you still have an unpaid da-da-da for your da-da-da. And I'm like, oh my God. So just to be sure, I end up calling the airline one more time, and I get put on the phone with just an absolute godsend who was able to help me out. And she was like, yeah, I can see, there were multiple, declines on your card to pay for whatever. I'll see what I can do on my end to try to get that carry-on added to your ticket. And by the grace of God, she was able to get it added to my ticket, and I was then able to check in for my flight. And so that next day, which was my last day, I wake up really early and head to the airport. And my first connecting flight was from Phoenix to Dallas, Fort Worth. And all of that went okay. TSA was fine. I got there on time. Everything was cool. Well, then for my flight from Dallas back home, we were boarding the plane, and I'm kind of towards the back section. And, I'm kind of looking for my seat. And I'd realized on my ticket, it said like 28B. Well, if you get B, that means you're going to be in the middle seat. And I was like, oh, man. So anyway, I'm looking for my seat, and I end up on a row with a lady and her baby. And not just on the row. I mean, I was in the seat that was supposed to be right next to her. And listen, I'm not trying to be an asshole. I don't know what it's like to have kids. I can't imagine what it's like to have kids. And I mean, bless her heart, like, she was doing the very best she could, and I could tell like she was just trying to keep the baby under control. And of course, the baby is like squirming all over the place, and like her feet are kind of like, getting into my area. And I mean, this poor lady's basically like having like a wrestling match with this baby the whole time. But there's still one extra chair on our row, which is the aisle seat. And so as the plane keeps boarding, I'm like, please nobody sit in this seat. I'm just like praying that nobody's gonna sit in that seat so I would then be able to move over. Well, thankfully, no one was in that seat. So I was able to slide over, and that meant she would have more room for her baby because we would have a seat in between us. So that made for a much more comfortable flight than I'm sure it would have been otherwise. And that flight was fine. I kind of watched a movie, and before I knew it, we were home. And yeah, that pretty much concludes my crazy trip to Arizona. So if you've made it this far, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to my story. Hope you guys enjoy. Please be sure to give the video a like and subscribe. And I hope to see you guys on the next one. And as always, catch you later.